And this is where pretty much one of the most difficult ways to end the week. Welcome back to Decentralized Nutritional Science once again, in the frame and themes of structural violence and economics. This is pretty much our last day of training cycle, 8 exercises to no more than 10 exercises, depending on the endurance availability, and most of all, connective tissues and joints health resilience and their recoverability state at that given time. As with any training day, begins with any one of the following 4 warm-up cardio exercises. The first one will be a superset series of resistance band movements, which that combines both push and pull movements, and ending that with 10 repetitions of close grip diamond push-ups. So 4 times supersets of that. And then next, just going on a brisk walk, but with a semi-high intensity run, with speed rating anywhere between 15.0 to all the way to 17.0 on an incline level at 3.0. Alternatively to that, these farmer walk lunges, instead of us using a dumbbells or trap bar accessories, we are just using a simple straight bar over the back, 4 laps back and forth. And or lastly, we have what they call the pulley ski hit machine, in which that combines both push and pull sets of movement challenges on top of the obvious cardiovascular exertions. So once again, the general aim is to promote circulation, promote muscle hydration status, circulation that is, and to perform a series of muscle fascia release to ensure that we can actually adequately prepare all the tendons and the connective tissues also for the heavy and or key feature compound exercises throughout this session, especially for our first compound session, as well as in other compound exercises later after the middle or halfway recuperation period, in which that takes place anywhere between exercise number 6 or even up to exercise number 7, depending on the order and scheduling for the day. But all in all, the foam rolling session should ideally be not rushed. It should be taken with as much patience and with as much time needed as possible. So this will be anywhere between a good 6 to 8 minutes overall. So for the first compound exercise will be a choice of the following 3 options. The first of which is either we can do another Jefferson deadlift attempts, but once again, depending on the connective tissue readiness, in which unfortunately Fridays is when it is at its most compromised and exhausted state, we may have to deload that to anywhere between 27.5 kilograms to no more than 30 kilograms at most, but still keeping a volume productivity. Either that, or we could do the Smith lunges, in which what this is a 4x8 to 5x8 regimen, in which those 8 repetitions are actually divided into 2 sections. The first section being performed on one leg, and then the other 4 repetitions being reserved for the other leg. 4 times that, with intensity anywhere between 35 kilograms on each side, that is, and all the way to 42.5 kilograms. And in some very rare exceptional circumstances, up to 45 kilograms. That is, of course, not sustainable. But recently, there's another option in which this author has been trying to get back into the conventional deadlift routines safely and pragmatically, given his L4-5S1 nerve joint recompensations, and that is trap bar deadlifts. So that's what we are going to use here in this presentation. So, trap bar deadlifts. What we are saying here is anywhere between 30 kilograms to no more than 40 kilograms in a progressive fashion. These higher intensity ranges are possible all thanks to the higher grip position, just to make sure that the overall back posture remains neutral. Resting times, this will be anywhere between, depending on the order of the exercises, anywhere between 30 seconds, but all the way up to 55 to 1 minute, once again, which is not much different to our previous recording on the Jefferson's deadlifts. Trap bars, as we all know, have been given quite a bad reputation in that not many people consider it as a viable piece of strength training regimen. However, there is nevertheless immense utility that this author feels that, given his prior injury in which he has been inflicted with a mildly degenerating L4/L5/S1 region of the lumbar spine. So hence, the need for all these years to consider other unconventional lifts and compounds, the front aristocrat Olympic bar squats or the Jefferson deadlifts. So for those viewers who actually demand a more upfront presentation to showcase the full evidence of the weights and the intensity and the posture being performed, here is a frontal view of the recording on another day. And this particular session is actually using the same 6x5 to 6x6 with time under tension holding opportunities from upwards, then all the way down on each last repetition, with intensity starting from 30 kilograms all the way up to 40 kilograms on each side, with resting times anywhere between 50 seconds, anywhere between 45 seconds, all the way to 1 minute, given the unfortunate disc degeneration condition that needs to be taken into account, and also with the amount of recuperation that's required, given that this is a compound feature exercise. Another thing worth mentioning when it comes to doing any trap bars or conventional deadlift motions and movements is that it may be a good idea to actually alternate the leg stances and the position. That not always the square front-on strict position seems to be the best for all occasions. That is simply not the case. There are times whereby longer or wider stance with toes pointing out does give from time to time a better leverage, but not in all cases either. So, hence, unfortunately, when it comes to biomechanics, individual differences will always vary. There are times whereby a closer stance may inflict more torque or pressure on the L4/5/S1 region of the lumbar spine. However, there are some moments or circumstances whereby adopting a wider stance does relieve it, and vice versa. So once again, it always seems as though there comes a need to alternate in between stances. Wider stance, closer stance, toes out, toes square, and so on and so forth. This is a pull-down session, but this time we're using the proprietary shoulder width handle setup. Once again, this is a conservative maintenance record between 50 kilograms, but no more than 57.5 kilograms, 6x5 to 6x6 repetitions with resting times anywhere between 30 to 45 seconds on average. So once again, just a bit of disclaimer. Most of the footages we see in front of you are actually taken on separate days, but still nevertheless taken on that very same training day. The reason for this segmented recording attempts is because, once again, as a bit of disclaimer that has been repeated previously, it is impossible for anyone to be able to record, film, document, and with all the commentary, audio, and videos, etc., throughout that, not just 7 or 8 exercises, but all the way up to 11 or even up to 12 exercises. If anyone manage, nevertheless, to be able to do all that, then more power to them. Given that there is always technical difficulties, things get in the way, and also to make sure that anonymity of traffic and other gym users that needs to be respected. We just have to make sure that we remain courteous and respectful, so that there is just the right opportunity for us to film and record these exercises, and that is, as one can expect, is a very rare opportunity. It doesn't come too often. So having disclosed all that, we may now return back to the video. So this is an individual sided arm back rows, in which this exercise here is actually composed of up to 5 sets of 8 reps overall. And in those 8 reps overall is divided into 2 sides of movements. The first side being starting the right arm, and then followed by 4 reps on the other arm, with, once again, negative time under tensions, as we can see here on the last rep, on each last rep of each side. Before then, we rest no more than anywhere between 30 to 45 seconds of rest, depending, of course, on the state of the connective tissue's resilience and or their readiness. This author actually prefers to use one arm at a time. The reason being is that it allows him to have greater leverage and greater range of movement to their most authentic exertions and activations on the back muscles as required. So, with any back day, there comes a need for biceps training. However, this author does not condone, although he only can speak from his own N=1 experience, to be limited to just one exercise's negative tension holding components. One of which is that it concentrates the frontal set of movements as well as the rear side of movements. Once again, this custom bicep curl exercise that this author have adopted is not by any means a gospel for all to follow, but other than the fact that this is just only what he prefers, and that it not only encourages more productivity, but also the tension and the amount of exertions that it actually produces are far more meaningful than the usual pedestrian pick-me-up curls that 99% of people would resort to. These time under tension exercises are very, very exhaustive, and it is always encouraged for anyone to try out new things and to challenge new things, and to be not so afraid when it comes to approaching voluminous exercises, because after all, there is only so much we can do in one training day, so why not make the most of it? So this is where the middle or the halfway training session begins, whereby just a brief recuperation period, as we've described earlier, is where it may be necessary for us to consider taking in just a little bit of aspirin as a mild analgesic, as well as a partial ergogenic aid. Anywhere between half a tablet to no more than 1 full tablet is usually the maximum dosage that this author would actually be taking, especially at this middle recuperation period. However, once again, keep in mind that this is not meant to be taken as a regular intake or a regular supplementation to be expected each and every training day, because there is always going to be some debates and disputes surrounding the usage of such within fitness training meritocracies. Because once again, this video unfortunately is neither space nor the time for us to discuss such debates, because there is so much nuances when it comes to the repercussions surrounding the usage of NSAIDs, ibuprofen, aspirin, paracetamols, to name a few. So, at the end of the day, considering that there is a myriad of pros and cons from each side, there appears to be nevertheless a case for individualization. Nevertheless, it is always important for anyone who would like to consider incorporating the use of NSAIDs to cycle and periodize in 3 amounts between none, low, and high intakes, and actually monitor and journal their training performances as closely and as accurately as they can from day to day. So next we have the foam rolling session. So once again, the main concern and goal behind any foam rolling session is to both recalibrate and to recondition all joints and connective tissues that will be quite relevant to our next heavy compounds. And so begins yet another feature exercises. This time a compound front arthrograph custom front squats as we've already covered earlier in the previous video presentations. So what is shown here is just the more safer and conservative intensity rating. However, what is shown here is a 7 by 5 to 6 repetition attempts, in which there is usually a rare attempt, but still nevertheless doable. Limiting to just that as 15 kilograms on each side, with resting time anywhere between 45 seconds, but to no more than 1 minute, usually. Once again, as with any other previous, as covered in the previous presentation videos, time under tensions, from all the way down on the last repetition and then all the way up. So here in this T-bar bent over rows, what we are seeing here is actually the lighter, the lower but safer maintenance attempts, by which that it actually hovers anywhere between 35 kilograms to 42.5 kilograms. Once again, depending on the connective tissues and joints resilience. Of course, this is only once in a while deloaded sessions, and by no means that this is actually a maintenance record. The higher maintenance record attempts can be seen anywhere between handling anywhere between 42.5 kilograms and then also all the way up to 47.5 kilogram attempts. So once again, as a bit of disclaimer, that all the videos that is presented throughout this feature YouTube uploads is going to be a mix between the lower but the safer volume intensity regions and or levels between RTE scale of 5 to 6, but also there will be plenty of footages and or segments showcasing the much higher intensity challenge attempts. So up next is the V-bar pull downs. So what is shown here is the 7th set attempts of 6 repetitions with time and retention opportunities, reserving the last 7th set, however, on the slightly deloaded intensity from 47.5 kilograms down to 45 kilograms due to the level of cumulative exhaustions, as one may expect. Resting time-wise will be anywhere between, still quite short, fairly short, in between 20 seconds to no more than 40 seconds. Intensity-wise, this actually range in between 42.5 kilograms, which is a safe, conservative record on the lower end, but on the higher end, definitely no further than 47.5 kilograms to allow and to accommodate the range of motions needed to therefore accentuate and to properly exercise the intended muscle groups. So, dumbbell lying down rows. What we see here is that we're using 12.5 kilograms on each side on an incline bench, and this is done in a 6x5 to 6x6 regimen, time under tension if possible. However, given the state of exhaustion, especially during roundabout exercise, anyway, numbers between exercise up to number 9, this is where, unfortunately, time under tension may not be possible. So hence, we just have to do what we can do at this stage. 6x5, 6x6, and with resting times anywhere between 35 to 50 seconds, depending on the level of exhaustion. So when it comes to the finishing accessory, once again, just to quickly recap, we have a number of one of the 4 following options. The first which is we can actually redo the superset band movements followed by diamond push-ups, 4 times superset of that. But alternative to that, once again, depending on the joints and calf resilience, pull-ups with leg raises challenge attempts, followed by 20 kilogram Otis up movements. Next would be a superset of CC squats using a 20 kilogram plate, followed by hammer grip back bell rows with up to 15 kilogram attempts, 4 times superset of that. Or finally, we could use a custom push press movements, in which this is what we're going to use in this presentation. So, the custom push press movements. What is shown here is usually when it comes to the maintenance record for custom push press, with reasonable amount of meaningful amount of exertion will be anywhere between 5x5 to 6x5 to 6x6 repetition attempts in 15 kilograms on each side to all the way up to just 17.5 kilograms. Now, custom push press is actually quite a demanding set of movements, because not only that, it actually simulates a squat push movements from the ground upwards, but also pull movements, and also testifies the core stability, especially when it comes to utilizing the negative time and retention holding opportunities at the last repetition, as we can see here. With any one of these finishing accessories, it must be meaningful as such that it is both productive and also challenging, to the point whereby for anyone who hasn't felt as though they haven't actually done any of a good or a meaningful enough of a workout, just try a few of these finishing accessories and once again, and see how they go. With a bit of disclaimer as such that none of this is meant to be taken as advice, but other than the fact that it remains open for individual exploration. But of all things, it is always wise to always start conservative and to acquaint with the range of motions. Then just slowly work the intensity upwards, just enough to the point whereby there is enough muscle stimuli and inflammatory responses that can be felt upon. Resting time wise, once again, this is kept anywhere between 45 seconds to up to 1 minute, because of the fact that there is so much exhaustion, given that this is our last of the 4 days of volume depletion training. Once again, just to showcase to readers just how much work, how much volume, and how much effort it takes to properly and adequately, and of all things, meaningfully deplete not just glycogen depletion stores, but to also just to testify and to authenticate everything that what we've inputted so far as rations to their most transparent and authenticated rationality. Nothing more, nothing less. And as soon as we've done the last exercise, then still comes the foam rolling session. Just the very same muscle fascia release rituals on the affected regions. So that would be usually the lower backs, the glutes, the coccyx or the tailbone sections, as well as the lateral obliques. And once again, spending a good time anywhere between 5 to 8 minutes. So that concludes the last training day sample in the life of Cyclical Keto plus Intermittent Fasting principle. There is only a few last parting words as we are now drawing to a close and a conclusion towards this entire 5 years and plus still ongoing to this day worth of training journalism into just one statement. Raise your own bar. That is, be yourself, authenticate, and of all things, repeat. Authenticate, meaning testifying your inputs to their most rationalized or authentic outputs. Hence, self-inquiring, self-authentication. It is all about self-distinction. Nothing more, nothing less. Leave it forward, and thank you for watching.